We are wrapping up our Angular and Pocketbase series today by doing the functionality needed to manage our task lists. Let's go. The first change I want to make is in the task model object. I want to add a property named edit mode, which is a Boolean, so that I can track which task is currently being edited in the task list. Our next stop is in the auth service. I want to add a new async method named getUserID, and that will return a promise any. Then I'll just create an instance of Pocketbase, and then return await pb.authstore.model. Then we can move over to the tasks service, and I'll create a new async method named updateTask. And that will accept one argument, task, which is a task model, and it's going to return a promise task model. Then once again, create an instance of Pocketbase, and then return await pb.collection tasks.update, and then we have to provide the key, so task.id, and then task. Our next new method is async add task, and that also takes in a single argument task model, and it returns a promise task model. Then we just create an instance of Pocketbase, and then return await pb.collection tasks.create, and then pass in the task argument. Next, we need a way to delete tasks from the list. So async delete task, and this one only needs the key task ID string, and that's going to return a promise Boolean. Once again, we create a Pocketbase instance, and then return await pb.collection tasks.delete, and then pass in task ID. Next, we are in the tasks component, and we need to update our imports to include the forms module import so that we can have an ng model on our form fields. We also need to inject the auth service, and I want to create another array, which is called tasks hold. And it's an array of strings, which is going to store the name of the tasks in our collection. When we edit a task and then cancel out of that edit, we want to be able to restore that name to its previous value. There's many ways of doing this. This is only one. We also need the user ID value, which is a string, and that can be initialized to an empty string. The next change I want to make is the contents of the ng-on-init method. I want to move out into its own method, so I'll create a new function named activate, and then paste that code from ng-on-init into that new method. And then from the ng-on-init method, we'll just call this.activate. Next, in that activate method, we need to populate the value of our user ID field. So this.authservice.getUserID, and then the result's going to be any, and then we can just set the this.userid equals res.id. Another problem that I want to try to solve is when you finish a task or delete a task, I want to have a small delay before that task is actually removed from the list. So create another new method named hideTask, which takes in an argument of task model. And inside of that method, I just want to call setTimeout, and then I want to grab the index of the task that's been passed in, and then I want to splice the tasks collection using that index value, and then a length of 1. And I want this to take about a half a second, so 500 will be the delay. Next up is cancel edit, which will take in a single argument task, which is a task model. And we need to be cautious here. If we have not persisted a new task to the database, then we just want to remove it from the list. Instead of trying to save it or do something else with it, we'll just remove it from the list and go on about our business. So I'll do let delete task equals task.id equals empty string. Then we'll get the index of that task from the tasks collection. And then we're going to reset the name on that task to this.taskhold index. And then we'll toggle off the edit mode value for that task. Then, like I said, if we have not persisted this task, and if delete task is true, then we're just going to splice it out of both collections. This.tasks.splice idx1 and this.taskshold splice idx1. Next up, we'll provide a way to save new tasks, not add them to the list, but actually persist them. So save new task, and then we'll pass in a task of task model. And we want to call this.taskservice.addTask and pass in that task. And the result of that will be a new task model. We'll grab the index of the task that was passed into this method. Then we can update the task.id equals res.id and the created value equals res.created, the updated value to res.updated, and the user value to res.user.
And here's your friendly reminder to like and subscribe. We post new videos often for software developers, software engineers, and software architects. Thanks.
Then we need to update taskshold IDX to be the task.name. And then finally, we'll toggle off edit mode for that task. Next up, we have to be able to delete tasks from the collection. So this will take in a task argument task model, and we're going to call this.taskservice.deleteTask and then pass in just the task ID. The result of that is going to be a Boolean. Then we need to just grab the index of that task in the tasks collection and then splice it out. We also have to splice it out of the tasks hold collection. Next, we need to be able to edit tasks. So at this point, I only want to allow one task in the collection to be edited at a time. So I'm going to loop through each of this.tasks, and if the task that I'm looping over doesn't equal the task that was passed in, then we are going to turn off edit for that task that we're looping over. And then at the end, we will turn on the edit mode for the task that we're working with. Next, I want to add another method named updateTask, and that's going to take in a single argument task model. Then we need to check the task.id to see if it's an empty value, an empty string. And if it is, we'll call this.saveNewTask and then pass in the task object that was passed into this method. Otherwise, we need to update the task by calling this.taskservice.updateTask and then pass in the task argument. That's going to return a task model result, and we will just turn off edit mode for that task. Then we need to grab the index of the task that we are updating, and we need to update the task hold index to be task.name. And then we need to check to see if the task.complete value is true, and if it is, we need to call this.hideTask and pass in task. Next up is our template, and once again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I will quickly walk through what we're doing. At the top of the task list, we have a button, and when that button is clicked, it of course is going to call add task. And to refresh your memory, this just adds a new task to the collection. It does not persist. Next, we're looping over the tasks collection, and then we are going to add a checkbox for each of those tasks. And when the task is toggled, it is going to call update task, passing in the task object. And the model for this is going to be t.complete. Next, we have a label that's going to display the t.name. And you'll notice that we've got two different controls here. If the edit mode is off, it'll be a label. If the edit mode is on, it'll be a text box. The label has a double click event And when you double click that label, it's going to toggle edit task on. Next, we have 3 different buttons for each task. And you'll notice that these are only going to display if t.edit mode is true. The first button is going to be disabled if t.name trim equals an empty string. And the click event on that is tied to update task, and of course passing in the task argument, the t argument. Next we have a cancel button, which calls cancel edit passing in t. And then finally we have a delete button that will call delete task when it's clicked. So let's cd into Pocketbase in our terminal and then execute /Pocketbase space serve, and then click on the admin UI link. And you'll see that I have 3 tasks still in the system. And in my ng terminal, I'll cd into robotask and then ngserve space -o. So there's our 3 tasks. You can see the add task button. Everything is pretty much how I would expect to see it. I'm not saying it's very pretty, but it is functional at this point. So I'm going to add a new task, which brings up the text box and the buttons. I'll add a new task named test task for delete, and then click the save button. And that seems to work. Now if I double click that label, okay, we enter into edit mode. Then if I hit delete, the object goes away. And I'll add another test task 2. Click save. Before I delete the task, let's do a refresh just to make sure that everything is indeed working. Okay, now I'm going to finish that task that I just added. Everything looks good. Let me update this task name and then cancel. Uh-oh, we have a problem. Okay, I finally found it. And you can see if I hit the refresh button, the tasks return back to normal. So nothing is really wrong other than the fact that I left one thing out. In the activate method, we also, when we're looping through and we're pushing the task objects to the tasks list, we also need to push a new value of t.name to the tasks hold list. Now let's try that again. So I'll update the task, hit cancel. Okay, good. It goes back to the normal. Hit cancel, that gets removed. Let's save a new task. Everything looks good. I refresh. It's there. When I delete it, it goes away. That's it, we're done. That's great. Not that much code really went into that. Using the Pocketbase APIs, the management APIs, the CRUD APIs, it makes really short work of quite a bit of functionality. I hope you've enjoyed this series. I think I'm going to try the same thing with Superbase and see how much more effort or how much less effort that is. I know Superbase is a very different product. It's a much bigger product. Still should be fun. Until next time, happy coding.